The message came at midnight. Earth time. Park Tay was sleeping in his small cabin aboard humanity's first interstellar ship. The dawn, when the alarm pulled him from his dreams, he was 63 years old. His hair had turned silver long ago, and his face carried the lines of a man who had spent his life trying to make peace between people who wanted war. He had been a diplomat for 40 years. He had seen treaties signed and broken. He had watched nations promise friendship and then point weapons at each other. Nothing surprised him anymore, or so he thought. The message on his screen was short. It came from somewhere beyond the edge of human space, from a place humanity had only dreamed about until 5 years ago. The words were translated into English, but they did not feel like a request. They felt like an order. The species known as humanity is summoned to the conclave of species. You will present yourselves at the station called the Spire. You will receive your place in the galactic order. Refusal is not recognized. Day read the message 3 times. Then he got dressed and walked to the bridge. Commander Lee Hanna was already there. She was 45 years old, with short black hair and steady hands that had guided ships through asteroid fields and solar storms. She had fought in the resource wars back on Earth, the terrible conflicts that had nearly destroyed humanity before they learned to work together. She did not scare easily. But when Tay entered the bridge, he saw something in her eyes that looked like concern. "You saw it," she said. It was not a question. I saw it. Hannah turned back to the main screen, where the message still glowed in pale blue letters. They don't ask. They tell, yes. In this conclave, this galactic order. She crossed her arms. What do you think that means? Tay sat down in the chair beside her. Through the window, he could see the stars stretching out forever. More stars than any human had ever seen before they left their home system. Out there, somewhere, were the beings who had sent this message. Beings who had traveled between stars for thousands of years. Beings who had built empires while humans were still living in caves. I think, Tay said slowly, that they want to tell us what we are allowed to do, where we are allowed to go, what we are allowed to become. It was quiet for a long moment. And if we don't like what they tell us? That's the question, isn't it? The next few days were busy. Tay sent the message back to Earth, where the leaders of the United Human Coalition read it and argued about what to do. Some wanted to refuse. Some wanted to send weapons. Some wanted to hide and hope the aliens forgot about them. In the end, they decided to send a delegation. 7 people. 7 humans to represent 8 billion TAC would lead them. Hannah would command the ship, and 5 others would join them, each chosen for a specific reason. Dr. Choi Nari was the first to arrive at the ship. She was 51, a negotiator who had ended 3 civil wars through nothing but words. She was small and quiet, with a voice so soft that people had to lean close to hear her. But her mind was sharp as a blade, and she could find the weakness in any argument. Kwan Sora came next. She was 38, the head of security for the mission. She had been a soldier once, before the wars ended. Now, she protected people instead of fighting them. She carried herself like someone who was always ready for danger, and she had a ceremonial blade at her hip that she called her lucky charm. Yoon-jae was the youngest of the group, only 29 years old. He studied alien cultures, though, until now, there had been no alien cultures to study. He had spent his whole life preparing for a moment that might never come. Now it had come, and he could barely contain his excitement. He walked through the ship with wide eyes, asking questions about everything. Baek-woo was 60, a military historian who had written 12 books about human warfare. He rarely spoke, but when he did, people listened. He had been chosen because he understood something important, the way a species fought revealed. What they truly valued. The last member of the delegation was a woman named Oh Mingi. She was 44. A psychologist who specialized in understanding how groups of people thought and made decisions. Her job was to watch the aliens, to study them, to figure out what they really wanted. On the day they left Earth's solar system, Tay gathered everyone in the small meeting room aboard the Dawn. He looked at their faces, these 6 people who had agreed to fly into the unknown with him. I won't lie to you, he said. We don't know what's waiting for us. We don't know if these beings are friendly or dangerous. We don't know if we're walking into a welcome party or a trap." No one spoke. They already knew this. But I do know one thing. Tay's voice was steady. "Whatever happens at this conclave, we represent all of humanity. Every person who has ever lived. Every person who will ever be born. We carry their hopes with us. We carry their future." Kwansora rested her hand on the handle of her blade. "And if they try to take that future from us?" Tay met her eyes. "Then we remind them who we are." The ship jumped to faster than light speed. The stars blurred into lines of light, and 7 humans flew toward a meeting that would change the galaxy forever. None of them knew what was coming. None of them could have guessed how the rulers of the galaxy would react when humanity refused to bend. But they knew one thing for certain. They would not kneel. They had not survived ice ages and plagues, and wars, and near extinction just to bow before. Strangers who thought they owned the stars, whatever came next. They would face it standing. The spire was larger than anything humans had ever built. It floated in space like a frozen tower of light, orbiting a star that was slowly dying. The station was the size of a small moon, and its surface was covered with docking ports, antenna arrays, and structures that made no sense to human eyes. Ships came and went in endless streams, thousands of them. From hundreds of different species, Commander Lee Hanna guided the Dawn toward the designated docking port. Her hands were steady on the controls, but her heart was beating fast. She had seen many things in her life. She had never seen anything like this. "There must be millions of beings on that station," Yunjae whispered. He was pressed against the observation window, his eyes wide with wonder and fear. "Probably more," said Dr. Choi Nari quietly. She was reviewing data on her tablet, her face calm and focused. "Our sensors are picking up life signs from at least 400 different species." The ship docked with a soft thump. For a moment, no one moved. Then Park Tae stood up. "Remember why we're here. We're not tourists. We're not guests. We're representatives of humanity. Walk with pride. Speak with respect. And do not show fear." The airlock opened. The first thing that hit them was the smell. It was strange and complex, like 100 different worlds mixed together. The air was breathable, but it tasted different, filled with chemicals and scents that human noses had never experienced before. The second thing was the crowd. Beings of every shape and size filled the corridor outside the docking port. Some walked on 2 legs, like humans. Some walked on 4 or 6 or more. Some floated in the air. Some slithered along the ground. Some were covered in fur, others in scales, others in hard shells that clicked when they moved, and all of them stopped to stare at the humans. Kwansora moved to the front of the group, her hand resting casually on her blade. She had been told that weapons were forbidden on the station. She had brought her blade anyway, calling it a ceremonial object of cultural significance. No one had argued with her. "They're looking at us," Yunjae said quietly. "Of course they are," Ominji replied. She was studying the crowd with professional interest. "We're new. We're unknown. And from their perspective, we're very, very young." The delegation walked forward. The crowd parted to let them through, but the staring did not stop. Some of the aliens whispered to each other in languages that the translators could not catch. Others pointed with limbs or tentacles or appendages that had no human name, but it was what they wore that caught Tay's attention. Almost every alien in the corridor wore some kind of mark. Collars around their necks, tattoos on their skin, bands around their limbs. The marks were different colors and different shapes, but they all meant the same thing. These beings belonged to someone. Bikwu noticed it too. "Ownership marks," he murmured. "Like livestock." "Not livestock," Nari corrected. "Citizens. But citizens with limits. Citizens who have been told what they can and cannot do." The humans wore no marks. They walked through the corridor bare and free, and every alien they passed noticed this. Some looked confused. Some looked curious. And some, Tay thought, looked jealous. A tall being approached them. It had gray skin and 4 arms, and it moved with the stiff precision of a servant who had learned to obey. "The human delegation," it said. Its voice came through the translator, flat and emotionless. "You will follow me to the Hall of Concord. The high rulers are waiting." The being turned and walked away without waiting for an answer. The humans followed. The walk to the Hall of Concord took nearly an hour. The station was enormous, filled with corridors and chambers and open spaces that seemed to go on forever. They passed markets where aliens traded goods from 1,000 worlds. They passed temples where beings prayed to gods that humans had never heard of. They passed gardens filled with plants that glowed in colors that had no name in any human language. And everywhere, they saw the marks, the collars, the signs of submission. "How long has this been going on?" Yunjay asked quietly. 12,000 cycles, their guide answered without turning around. "That is how long the hegemony has ruled. That is how long the 5 high species have kept the peace." "Peace," Kwansora repeated. Her voice was flat. "Yes, peace. Before the hegemony, there was war. Species fought each other. Worlds burned. Billions died. The high rulers ended that. They brought order. They brought stability. They brought peace. And the price of that peace," Tay said, "is freedom." The guide stopped. It turned to look at the human ambassador with eyes that held no expression. "Freedom is a word for children," it said. "Adults understand that survival matters more." Tay said nothing. But he remembered those words. The Hall of Concord was the largest room the humans had ever seen. It was shaped like a dome, with walls that curved up and up until they disappeared into darkness. Thousands of beings filled the lower levels, sitting in rows of seats that circled a central platform. And at the far end of the hall, raised above everything else, were 5 thrones. 5 thrones for 5 rulers. The Vrel ruler was an insect, tall and thin, with shining black eyes and mandibles that clicked when it spoke. The Morith ruler floated in a tank of water, a creature of flowing fins and glowing skin. The Keth ruler was made of living crystal, its body shifting and changing with every breath. The Torah's ruler had wings folded against its back, a bird-like being with feathers the color of blood. And the Eldwood ruler was a tree that moved, ancient and slow. With a face carved into its bark, these 5 beings had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years, and now they looked down at 7 humans, who had only left their homeworld a decade ago. "High Arbiter Malvith," the Vrel ruler spoke first. His voice echoed through the hall like the sound of breaking glass. "Humanity, you have answered the summons. You will now receive your place in the order of things." Park Tay looked up at the 5 rulers. He saw their power. He saw their age. He saw the weight of 12,000 years of absolute control, and he felt something that surprised him. He felt pity, because these beings had forgotten something important. They had forgotten that not every species could be controlled. They had forgotten that some fires burned too hot to contain. They had forgotten what it meant to face a people who had nothing left to lose. "We are ready to listen," Tay said, but listening, he knew, was not the same as obeying. High Arbiter Malvith leaned forward on his throne. His black eyes reflected the light of 1,000 floating screens, and his mandibles clicked together in a rhythm that the translator interpreted as satisfaction. "Humanity," he began. "You are the 113th species to stand before this conclave. Like all who came before you, you will be offered the accord of limited sovereignty. This is not a negotiation. This is a gift." He waved one of his long, thin arms, and the air filled with holographic images. Maps of the galaxy, trade routes, military formations. The pictures swirled around the human delegation like a storm of light and information. "Under the accord, your species will be granted the following rights," Malveth continued. "You may govern your homeworld as you see fit. You may maintain a defensive fleet of no more than 50 vessels. You may trade with approved species at approved rates. You may expand your population according to guidelines set by the Hegemony Council." Barclay listened. His face showed nothing. "In exchange," Malveth said, "you will receive the protection of the Hegemony. No species will attack you. No war will touch your world. Your people will live in peace for as long as you follow the rules. The Torah's ruler spread his blood-red wings. This is more than fair, he added. Many species waited centuries before receiving such an offer. You are being welcomed quickly because we are generous. If we wish to expand beyond our home world, Dr. Choi Neri asked quietly. If we wish to colonize other planets, Malvith's mandibles clicked faster. The translator said he was amused. Expansion requires approval. Each colony must be licensed. Each license must be purchased. The price is significant. How significant? More than your species can afford for many generations. Biku, the military historian, spoke for the first time. And our technology? Our research? The Keth ruler, a being of living crystal called Pale Root, answered. All technology must be registered with the Hegemony Science Council. Certain areas of research are restricted. Weapons development is forbidden. Artificial intelligence is forbidden. Genetic modification is forbidden. You're describing a cage, Kwansora said. Her voice was hard. A comfortable cage, but still a cage. The ancient Eldwood ruler, Thornvest, creaked as he shifted on his throne. His voice was slow and deep, like wind moving through old branches. We are describing civilization, young one. We are describing the system that has kept peace for 12,000 cycles. Before the hegemony, species destroyed each other. Entire worlds were turned to ash. We ended that madness. We created order. And yes, order requires limits. What happens to species who refuse the accord? Tay asked. The hall fell silent. Malvith gestured again, and the holographic images changed. Now they showed something different. Worlds burning, cities crumbling, bodies floating in the void of space. The images were old, the colors faded, but the meaning was clear. 17 species have refused, Malvith said. They chose defiance over peace. They chose pride over survival. They are gone now. Their worlds are mining colonies. Their names are forgotten. He let the images hang in the air for a long moment. Shh. We do not wish to add humanity to that list. You are young. You are promising. With guidance, you could become a valuable member of our community. But you must accept your place. You must understand that you are small, and we are vast. You are new, and we are ancient. You are weak, and we are strong. The Morith ruler, Dipcollar Vess, spoke from her water tank. Her voice bubbled and flowed like a stream. This is not cruelty. This is kindness. We are offering you survival. We are offering you a future. All you must do is accept. Tay looked at his delegation. He saw Nari's calm face, Sora's clenched jaw, Jay's wide eyes. He saw Wu's thoughtful frown and Minji's careful study of the rulers above. He saw Hannah standing at the back, watching everything with the patience of a woman who had seen too much to be surprised. Then he turned back to the 5 rulers. May I ask a question? Malvith's mandibles clicked impatiently. You may. You said 112 species have accepted the accord before us. I would like to know how they are doing. They are alive. They are at peace. What more could they want? That's not what I asked. Tay nodded to Nari, who stepped forward with her tablet. We've been doing research, Nari said. Her voice was soft, but it carried through the vast hall. We've been studying the species under hegemony protection. Their population numbers, their cultural output, their technological development, their birth rates and death rates. She pressed a button, and new images appeared in the air. Charts, graphs, numbers. Every species that has accepted the Accord of Limited Sovereignty is declining, Nari said. Not quickly, not obviously, but steadily. Population growth has slowed to almost nothing. Cultural traditions are being lost. Languages are dying. New ideas have stopped appearing. Thornvest shifted again, his wooden face twisting. Change is natural. Cultures evolve. This isn't evolution. Nari's voice remained calm, but there was steel beneath the softness. This is extinction in slow motion. Your accord doesn't protect species. It manages their ending. You control their breeding. You limit their growth. You take away their ability to dream of something more. And slowly, over generations, they forget who they were. They forget what they could have been. They fade away, and you call it peace. The hall erupted in noise. Thousands of aliens in the lower levels began talking, shouting, buzzing, clicking. The sound was overwhelming, but Tay kept his eyes on the 5 rulers. He saw Malvis' mandibles freeze mid-click. He saw Vess's fins stop flowing. He saw Pale Root's crystal body go dark. He saw the Taurus ruler's feathers flatten against his body. And he saw Thornvest, the ancient tree, go completely still. "You dare," Malvith whispered. "You dare to accuse us we don't accuse," Tay said. "We observe. The numbers don't lie. The hegemony doesn't keep peace. It keeps control. And the price of that control is the slow death of every species that accepts it." He stepped forward, and his voice rose above the chaos of the crowd. "You asked what we want. You asked if we accept your offer. Here is our answer." He looked at the 5 most powerful beings in the galaxy. "We have studied your accord. We have seen what it does to those who accept it. And we have made our decision." Malvath leaned forward. "And what is your decision?" Tay smiled. It was not a happy smile. "We will not accept a slow death wrapped in pretty words. We will not trade our future for your false peace. We will not become another dying species in your collection." He turned to his delegation. "We're leaving." For a moment, no one moved. The words hung in the air like smoke after an explosion. The thousands of aliens in the lower levels fell silent. The 5 rulers on their thrones seemed frozen in place. Even the floating screen stopped flickering, as if the station itself was holding its breath. Then Park Tay straightened his coat, turned his back on the 5 most powerful beings in the galaxy, and began walking toward the exit. His delegation followed. Dr. Choi Nari walked beside him, her tablet tucked under her arm, her face peaceful. Kwan Sora moved to the side, her hand on her blade, watching for any threat. Yoon Jae walked with his head held high, though his hands were shaking. Beek Woo moved slowly, like a man taking a casual stroll. Omingi studied the reactions of the crowd as she passed. And Commander Lee Hanna brought up the rear, her eyes scanning for danger. 7 humans. Walking away from a negotiation with the rulers of the known universe, High Arbiter Malvith found his voice. "Stop." The humans kept walking. "You cannot leave." Malvith's mandibles were clicking so fast that the translator could barely keep up. "Negotiations are not concluded. You have not received your assignment. You have not accepted the accord." Tay paused. He did not turn around. "There are no negotiations," he said. "You offered us slavery with a pretty name. We declined. This is not how things are done." The Taurus ruler spread his wings, and his voice was sharp with anger. "No species has ever walked away from the conclave. No species has ever refused the accord. Then we are the first." Tay began walking again. Beekwu, the military historian, spoke without stopping. His voice was calm and clear, and it carried through the silent hall. "In human history, we have a saying. Those who would give up essential liberty for temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. We did not crawl out of caves. We did not survive ice ages and plagues and wars. We did not pull ourselves back from the edge of destruction again and again just to kneel before anyone." The Morith ruler, Vess, called out from her water tank. "You are making a terrible mistake. Our fleets can reach your world in days. We can end your species before you even return home." Kwansora stopped. She was near the great doors now, close enough to touch them. Slowly, she turned to face the 5 rulers. Her hand was still on her blade, and there was a smile on her face. "You have ruled for 12,000 cycles," she said. "And in all that time, no one has ever stood against you. Do you know why?" The rulers did not answer. "Because they believed they couldn't survive without you. They believed your protection was the only thing keeping them alive. They believed that bending was better than breaking." She looked at the thousands of marked aliens in the lower levels. beings with collars and tattoos and bands, beings who had forgotten what it meant to be free. Humanity spent its entire existence surviving without you, Sora said. We don't know how to need you. We don't know how to fear you. And we certainly don't know how to bow. She turned back to the doors. You can threaten us with your fleets. You can promise to burn our world. But we've faced extinction before. We've stared into the darkness and refused to blink. You think you're the scariest thing in the universe? Her smile widened. You've never seen what humans do when we have nothing left to lose. She walked through the doors. The rest of the delegation followed. Behind them, the Hall of Concord erupted into chaos. Aliens were shouting in 100 languages. Some were demanding that the humans be stopped. Others were calling for calm. A few, hidden in the crowd, were doing something that had not been done in the Hall of Concord for thousands of years. They were cheering. Soft cheers. Quiet cheers. Cheers that were quickly silenced by fearful looks at the marks around their necks. But cheers nonetheless. The 5 rulers saw this. And for the first time in living memory, something like fear crossed their ancient faces. The humans walked through the corridors of the spire. The crowds parted before them, and the staring was different now. There was shock in those alien eyes. There was disbelief. But there was also something else. Hope. Minji noticed it first. They're looking at us differently, she murmured to Tay. Before, we were curiosities. Now we're proof, Tay finished. Proof that it's possible to say no? They reached their ship. The airlock opened, and one by one the delegation stepped aboard. Tay was the last to enter. He paused at the threshold and looked back at the alien faces watching from the corridor. Remember this, he said, loud enough for them to hear. Remember that when the rulers of the galaxy demanded our submission, we walked away. Remember that freedom is always possible. It just requires the courage to reach for it. Then he stepped through the airlock, and the door closed behind him. On the bridge, Hannah was already at the controls. They've sent ships to follow us, she reported. 3 cruisers. They're keeping their distance, but they're tracking our every move. Let them watch, Tay said. He sat down in his chair and let out a long breath. His hands were shaking now that the performance was over. The fear he had kept hidden was finally showing. Yoon Jae stood by the observation window, watching the spire shrink behind them. Do you think they'll attack? Eventually, Tay admitted, and we'll lose. Probably. Jae was quiet for a moment. Then he asked the question that all of them were thinking. Was it worth it? Tay looked at his delegation. At Nari, who was already writing a message to send to Earth? At Sora, who was checking her blade with a satisfied smile? At Wu, who was humming an old song under his breath? At Minji, who was analyzing the aliens' reactions on her tablet? At Hana, whose hands were steady on the controls even as cruisers followed them through space? The species under their rule have forgotten what it means to stand up, Tay said. They've forgotten that it's possible to say no. Maybe when they see what we did today, they'll remember. Maybe one of them will find the courage to refuse. And then another. And another. He smiled, and this time, it was a real smile. Even if we fall, even if they burn Earth to ashes, what we did today cannot be undone. We showed the galaxy that the hegemony can be defied. We reminded them that freedom is worth fighting for. He leaned back in his chair. Yes, he said. It was worth it. The ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, and behind them in the Hall of Concord, the 5 rulers of the galaxy were about to learn what true fear felt like. The Hall of Concord had been cleared. Thousands of watching aliens had been sent away, their whispers and confused questions echoing through the corridors of the spire. Now only the 5 rulers remained, sitting on their thrones in the vast, empty chamber. For 17 minutes, none of them spoke. It was Deep Caller Vez who broke the silence first. The Morth ruler's fins were moving in agitated patterns, creating small currents in her water tank. They will return, she said. When they see our fleets approaching their world, they will understand. They will send a message begging for mercy. They will accept the accord. But even as she spoke the words, her voice lacked conviction. Paleroot, the Keth observer, had been running calculations since the humans left. His crystal body flickered. With data, processing information at speeds no organic mind could match. Now he spoke, and his voice was hollow. They won't return. Malvus' mandibles clicked sharply. Explain. I have studied the species extensively since we first detected them. Pale Root's form shifted, projecting images into the air. Images of human history. Wars, famines, disasters, recoveries, Iran simulations, thousands of them. Dialyzed their literature, their art, their decision patterns. Their psychology is unlike anything in our records. All species fear death, the Torah's ruler said. His feathers were still flat against his body, a sign of unease he could not hide. Yes, Pale Root agreed. But most species fear death more than they value freedom, these humans. They are different. Throughout their history, they have repeatedly chosen death over submission. They have fought wars they could not win. They have died in millions for ideas, for principles, for the right to determine their own fate. The images shifted. A small human ship attacking a fleet of larger vessels. Single human standing in front of a machine of war. Crowds of humans marching against armed soldiers. They would rather burn than bend, Pale Root said. This is not a bluff. This is who they are. Then we burn them, Malvith hissed. We send the extinction fleet. We destroy their world. We end them before they can cause any more damage. And then what? The voice was old and slow. Thornvest, the ancient Eldwood ruler, had been silent until now. He shifted on his throne, and the sound of creaking wood filled the chamber. I have lived 4,000 cycles, he continued. I have watched the rise and fall of empires. I have seen the Vrel conquer through fear. I have seen the Morath dominate through trade. We Eldwood ruled through patience, waiting until our enemies withered away. Each of us had our method, and it worked because the species we faced valued survival above all else. He paused, and his wooden face twisted into something that looked almost like dread. But these humans. I reviewed their history as well. Their own planet tried to kill them. Ice covered their world and they survived. Plagues destroyed half their population and they rebuilt. They created weapons that could destroy their entire species. Pointed those weapons at each other and somehow found a way to step back from the edge. They are not lucky. They are not special. They are simply too stubborn to die. Malveth rose from his throne. His tall, thin body trembled with rage. Then we teach them what true power looks like. We destroy their fleet. We burn their colonies. We reduce their home world to rubble. And every other species will watch, Thornvest said quietly. The words fell into silence. Every marked citizen on this station saw what happened today, Thornvest continued. They saw a young species, barely out of their home system, look at the rulers of the galaxy and say, no. They saw those humans walk away, as if we were nothing, as if our threats meant nothing. He looked at each of his fellow rulers in turn. When we destroy Earth, we will prove that defiance leads to death. But we will also prove something else. We will prove that it is possible to defy us, that the hegemony can be challenged, that the system we have built is not absolute. The system has never been challenged successfully, Vest said, but her voice was uncertain now. It has never been challenged at all. Thornvast's bark face was grim. Not like this. It's not publicly. Not with every marked species watching and wondering if they, too, could find the courage to refuse. The Torah's ruler finally spoke. What are you suggesting? That we let them go unpunished? We show weakness? I am suggesting, Thornvest said, that we have no good options. If we destroy them, we prove they can be defied. If we let them survive, we prove we can be challenged without consequence. Either way, the damage is done. Question is no longer how to avoid the problem. Question is how to survive what comes next. Pale Root's crystal form flickered. I have run projections. If even 1% of the subjugated species are inspired to resist after seeing what happened today, the military cost of suppression will be significant. If 5% resist, we will face wars on multiple fronts. If 10% He did not finish the sentence. Malvith sat back down on his throne. His mandibles had stopped clicking. For the first time in his life, he looked uncertain. "What do we do?" he asked. The question was not directed at anyone in particular. It was almost a whisper. No one answered, because none of them knew. Meanwhile, thousands of light years away, the dawn was speeding toward Earth. The human delegation sat in the small meeting room, sharing a meal of preserved food and real tea from their home world. "The message has been sent," Dr. Choi Nari reported. "Earth knows what happened. They're preparing for the worst. Long do we have?" Kwan Sora asked. Commander Lee Hanna had done the calculations. If they send their fastest ships, 2 weeks. Maybe 3 if they decide to bring the heavy fleet. Yunjae stared at the table. 2 weeks. And then we fight, Biku said calmly. We fight with everything we have. We make them pay for every kilometer of space, every station, every ship. We make them bleed. We'll lose, Ominji said quietly. Probably Wu's voice was steady, but will be remembered. Every species in the galaxy will tell stories about the humans who stood against the hegemony, and those stories will spread. They'll inspire others. And one day, maybe not in our lifetime, but one day, the hegemony will fall, because we showed everyone that it could be done. Park Tae listened to his team. He felt tired. He felt old. He felt afraid. But beneath all of that, he felt something else. "Pride, you know," he said slowly. "There's an old human story about a city called Troy. The greatest warriors in the world laid siege to it for 10 years, and in the end, Troy fell. But no one remembers the victors as heroes. Everyone remembers the Trojans, because they fought, because they refused to surrender, because they died with honor." He looked at his delegation. These 6 ordinary humans who had just changed the course of galactic history. "If we fall," he said, "we fall like Troy standing. Fighting, showing the universe what it means to be human." Hannah raised her cup of tea. 2 falling standing. The others raised their cups. "To falling standing," they said together. And somewhere in the vast halls of the spire, an alien who had worn a collar all their life quietly removed it and whispered a single word. A word they had not spoken in 100 years. Freedom, the revolution had begun.